Hello, my name is Ralf Friedrichs. I'm an addiction recovery coach and the host of the Take Your Life Back Today show. As an addiction recovery coach, I want to share something with you. Let me be crystal clear to leave an everlasting impact upon you. Just imagine being buried alive. You're in a coffin, but you know you're not dead. You don't know how to get out of that coffin. You try lifting that lid, but the enormous weight upon the lid prevents you from opening the lid. You then think about banging on the lid to unsettle the dirt. Maybe somebody will notice and start digging their way down towards you. It doesn't happen. In reality, there are people standing by your grave. You just don't know that. You just think you're going to die. Usually, though, people don't think about death when they're addicted to drugs and alcohol. In order to feed an addiction, you have to repress the fear of death. I often ask you, my audience, did it ever cross your mind while you were abusing drugs and alcohol that maybe, just maybe, you might overdose and take something away that God had given you called life? And if that's not selfish enough, to take your life away from the people that need and count on you most. Mother, father, husband, wife, brother, sister, children, even grandchildren. With this, let me leave one last thought. Don't be like the person I just read about on these index cards that waited and waited until it was too late. Instead, pick up the phone and call me at 844-405-HELP, and I promise you I will help you take your life back before your life is gone. People like Larry Geis from the Geis Academy at 516-458-2741. Larry Geis and I always tell folks like you, it doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter where you've been. What matters most is that you're here for a better today and a brighter tomorrow. Larry Geis can be found at www.odysseyconsult.org, or you can give him a call at 516-458-2741. Folks, don't forget to take your slippers off at night. When you take those slippers off, don't just leave them at the edge of your bed. Stick them way under your bed. That way in the morning when you wake up, you will go on your knees to retrieve them, because you have to look under your bed. There they are. Go and get them. While you're on your knees, thank God for another beautiful day to enjoy a waterfall and a stream like this. For some people, they didn't have a chance to wake up. Thank God for having a home, clothing, food, for having a relationship, children, family. Ask God for guidance and direction for the upcoming day, weeks, and years to come. Ask God for forgiveness and mercy. Then when you're finished, when you had that personal chat that I call email, K-N-E-E mail, between you and God, stand straight up, pull your shoulders back, stick your chest out, and walk with God 24/7. Knee-mail, K-N-E-E mail. Stick your slippers under the bed at night, retrieve them first thing in the morning, from your mouth to God's ears, chat with God, ask Him, tell Him, do whatever it takes to let Him know that you are one of His followers. Folks, we're going to talk about 3 ways to rejoice in the midst of suffering. And there are a lot of people out there that suffer. So how can I literally sit here and say that you can rejoice? Well, the Bible is full of wisdom and truth. But do you ever come across a verse that is frankly a bit hard to embrace? Like Romans 5:3, more than that, we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. When we are suffering, typically the last thing we want to do is rejoice, and even often wonder if it's even possible to rejoice at all. Even though there are some things in the Bible that seem impossible, we are reminded in a way that the same book that with God, all things are possible. Matthew 19:26. I personally love the fact that all things are possible with God. Let me fix this camera. But sometimes I'm not too fond on the fact of nowhere in the Bible does it say things will be easy. Let's face it, when you are suffering, not much seems to come easy these days. I've recently been struggling with a bit in my life that took some time to seek God about when it came to, and I'm not talking about recently really, years ago with my alcoholism. And I asked God, how can I get through this, and how can I go and grow through this? Whether you are going through physical, emotional suffering, these can apply to you. When you are suffering, you become more aware of God's strength in your life. At the time of getting this particular segment ready, I know that there are people all over the world that are dealing every day with sickness, every day with financial problems. Thankfully, a lot of these people are diagnosed not with life-threatening diseases. They might be diagnosed just with common colds. There are people out there that are pregnant that are feeling nausea, often unable to hold food down for more than a month. And these people are suffering of some sort, but they still rejoice in God, especially when they're trying to fulfill other responsibilities in their life at the same time. I notice that during those times, that most people feel at their weakest, when they're suffering in one sense but still have responsibility. There is honestly no way that a person can get out of bed every day without the power of God's strength working within them. Typically, a person who is strong for others and who can push way past whatever is going on in their life finds their strength through the power of prayer and the power of God. This season of suffering has left not only me but other people aware of the strength of God in their lives. It's very humbling to know this, but it's so true. Paul knew his feeling too. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weakness, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, I am strong. 2 Corinthians 12:10. Paul realized that when he was so physically weak that he could barely stand to be alive, that it was God's strength that rose up in him. He knew that God's strength is so much more powerful than our own human strength. Therefore, he learned to be content in his weakest of suffering. Most people are still working on their contentment each and every day, but I know I can feel that God is bringing me closer step by step, day by day. When you are suffering, your trust in God and your faith increases. When you are at the end of yourself, you learn to trust God more because, frankly, what else are you going to do? You're at the end of you, and that's where you find that God is so faithful in your life with the promises, trust in the Lord with all your heart, do not depend on your own understanding, Proverbs 3:5. I love the second part of this verse about not depending on our own understanding, because the majority of the time we don't understand why we are suffering. We can ask God why all day long, but He's not obligated to answer us because He is building our trust in Him. So instead of learning, or I should say instead of leaning on our own understanding and demanding to know why, we are simply to trust Him to teach us and help us grow through whatever situation we all might be facing. I personally have also learned to stop depending on my own achievements because I haven't been achieving much in my life. I'm normally great at doing lots of different things, checking off my to-do list and finding value in everything I've accomplished that week, the day, the week, the month. Lately, however, my to-do list has been consistent, more of making it through the day and not much else. I've learned to remember my worth is in God and in God only, not in what I do or other people think of me. When you are zapped of energy from suffering, you stop putting on a mask to pretend that someone you are does exist, because you are the way God created you to be. As a result, you are the real you, and that is what God can work best with. When you are suffering, God can give you a new and refreshed perspective. If you take the time to listen and seek God while you are going through your trials, whatever they might be in life, He can show you a light. I know that this is hard because often the last thing you want to do is to go to God when you feel so low. I'll admit it is hard for me to do the same, so you're not the only one. But once I started praying about what was going through and how I could go through it, God showed me everything I'm writing here on this segment that I put on my teleprompter. I reminded myself what is really important in life, and the most important thing in life besides family is my relationship with God. My family and my people in my life are secondary, although just as important. But God is more important, because without God I wouldn't have my family. Money and things can seem very important for a lot of us, but in the midst of suffering they just don't seem as important anymore, because they aren't. Your family and those around you, and most importantly your relationship with God, are what is really important in your life. Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses. Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, A second is equally important. Love your neighbors as yourself. Matthew 22, 36 through 39. In the end, it's all about God and people. During your most difficult times, you will also often learn just how amazing the people in your life truly are. If you are often a person who tries to help and support others like I am, it can be especially difficult to ask for and accept help when you need it. Just because you are blessed when you help others, there comes a time when others to be blessed by helping you. When I was feeling especially down in my past years and stressed out, there weren't a lot of people, except for maybe one, that were standing by my side. I had multiple friends that were available, but the one person stepped in when it counted most. A lot of the folks that are in your life might step in from work and things as such, but there is one, a special one in your life, like there is in mine, that will step in. Even though it was hard to ask for any and accept any help, it was a huge blessing for whoever did step in. And without the grace of God, it wouldn't have happened. That's how it is. It's a season of suffering isn't the most fun or the easiest for anyone to go through, but I promise you, I believe we truly can rejoice if we keep focus on the right things in life. It can be difficult to do, but perhaps writing them down and posting them somewhere where you will see them daily, like the refrigerator, will help you. Or putting a note on your phone, or even just praying every day that God reminds you of the things you can really rejoice about this season. Most importantly, remember that it is the season, even though we're pretty far away from the season, is the season for the reason, or the reason for the season. You won't be suffering forever. It will be over eventually, and you will look back and talk about it and realize how much closer you have grown to God. What a more stable, mature person you are, and you will see how it really was possible to rejoice through all of it. And it all starts with from your mouth to God's ears each and every day. A nice prayer, a nice chat from your heart. May God bless you.